Today, we're going to take a deep dive, and I mean literally, into the physical heart of the internet. And spoiler alert, it's not in the sky, it's not wireless. No, it's this vast hidden world at the bottom of the ocean. We all talk about the cloud, right? It sounds so floaty, so weightless. But here's the thing, that's a total illusion. The real backbone of our digital lives, it's a massive physical network, just sitting there in the silent darkness of the deep sea. Okay, get ready for this number. 99%. Think about that. Over 99% of all international data, I'm talking your emails, your Netflix binge, those Zoom calls, it's not beaming through satellites. It's zipping through physical undersea cables. It's kind of the world's most important secret, hiding in plain sight. So let's get into it. We're going to peel back the layers on this huge physical secret. It's time to really understand what the internet is actually made of. Right, so the myth is that everything is bouncing off satellites up in space. And look, satellite internet is a thing, but it's such a tiny piece of the puzzle. We're talking less than 1%. The reality? Well, the reality is a massive web of cables just laid out on the ocean floor, physically connecting all of us. And this is the part that always gets me. You're probably picturing these huge, colossal pipes, right? But for most of their journey across the ocean, these incredibly vital data links are no thicker than a garden hose. Seriously, a garden hose. Okay, so how does this whole thing actually work? How do all these pieces fit together? Well, a really cool way to think about it is like the circulatory system in your own body. So in this analogy, the undersea cables are your main arteries, just pumping massive amounts of data across the oceans. The data centers, those are the vital organs, like your heart and brain, processing and storing everything. And the cable landing stations, where the cables finally hit land, they're like the tiny capillaries, branching out and connecting this huge global system to your local network and eventually right to your screen. And you can see there's a real hierarchy to it. At the very top, the absolute foundation of everything we do online is the bandwidth from these submarine cables. Literally every single thing you do, every website you visit, every video you stream, that request has to travel all the way up this pyramid before it comes back down to you. So what is one of these cables, really? Well, at the very core, you've got these strands of glass that are thinner than a human hair. These are the fiber optics, and they transmit data as basically pulses of light. Then you wrap them up in layers of copper, steel, and plastic to keep them safe. It's just an incredible contrast, isn't it? These tiny, tiny fibers carrying pretty much all of the world's information. But that begs the question, how on earth do you get thousands of kilometers of this stuff to the bottom of the ocean? I mean, it's a truly monumental feat of engineering. And what's wild is that the basic process, it really hasn't changed all that much in over 100 years. The idea itself is pretty simple, but actually doing it is another story. You have these massive, specialized ships that just unspool the cable out the back. Now, when they're close to shore, a plow will actually dig a trench to bury and protect it. But out in the deep, deep ocean, a lot of the time it's just lying right there on the seabed. Okay, here's a really clever little engineering trick for you. They don't lay the cables in a perfectly straight, tight line. Instead, they lay them with a bit of slack in these gentle S-curves. And you might be wondering why. Well, it's genius, really. It lets a repair ship grab a section and pull it all the way up to the surface, we're talking miles, without snapping the whole thing. And the scale of this whole operation, it's just mind-boggling. A single modern cable-laying ship can hold up to 9,000 kilometers of cable. Let me put that in perspective. That is more than enough to cross the entire Atlantic Ocean in one trip. Just wow. All right, so we know how they build it, but what's it all worth? What's the real-world value of this stuff? Well, the economic impact is, honestly, it's almost hard to wrap your head around. Let's just look at the numbers for one single project, one that connected the US and Ireland. Okay, so the cost to actually lay the cable was about $220 million. A lot of money, right? But the economic spillover, the GDP growth it created for just one of those countries, was estimated at over $140 billion. That is a return on investment of more than 600 times. That's not just good, that's absolutely phenomenal. So how does that even happen? Well, it's like a domino effect. You add more cable capacity, which means more competition, which drives down the price of data.
For us, that means faster, cheaper internet. And when internet is faster and cheaper, more people and businesses get online, which in turn just fuels all this incredible innovation and economic growth. It's a beautiful cycle.
But, and there's always a but, this amazing system, this engine that powers our whole global economy, it has a pretty surprising weakness. Yeah, it's way more fragile than you'd probably guess.
You might think the biggest threat is, I don't know, sharks with laser beams or some kind of James Bond villain. But the most common known cause of damage is actually super boring. Ship anchors and fishing nets, just dragging along the seabed. These totally routine accidents are responsible for a massive chunk of the 150 to 200 breaks that happen every single year around the world.
Okay, so we know the biggest threats are usually just accidents. But because these cables are so incredibly vital to a country's economy, as you can see in this whole chain reaction, a new, much more deliberate threat is popping up. Their importance has basically put a giant target on their back in today's geopolitical games.
And look, this isn't just some theory. We are seeing a very clear pattern of, let's call them suspicious accidents, in really tense parts of the world. Places like the Baltic Sea or near Taiwan. Suddenly, vital cables are getting damaged by ships with shady ownership, ships that have links back to state actors like Russia and China. It's a new kind of warfare, right? A way to cause chaos while being able to say, hey, it wasn't us.
And when a cable does get cut, you can't just fix it overnight. Get this. The average time it takes to repair one single deep-sea cable is 40 days. 40. That's more than a month of disruption. All because you have to get these super specialized ships out there to do some really complex work miles under the surface. And this is where we get to what might be the single biggest risk in the whole system. See, we're laying down new cables like crazy at a record pace. But the number of ships that can actually fix them, that number hasn't kept up at all. We are literally building our digital world way, way faster than we can repair it. And that is creating a seriously dangerous bottleneck.
So that leaves us with this final thought, right? This entire global system, our communication, our economy, our connection to each other, it all rests on something about as thick as a garden hose, sometimes just sitting on the sand at the bottom of the ocean. It's vulnerable to a random accident or a political power play. It really makes you stop and think, is the foundation of our digital world really just a line in the sand?